You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You are listening to the FinFans podcast, where we discuss everything Miami Dolphins. It's the off season, and we're looking forward to a fresh new start under different management in 2026. We hope you'll join us and enjoy the show. And it's another FinFans podcast. I'm here today with the Ragones as usual. Lewis and Chris. How are you, Lewis?
I'm doing good. The Knicks. Basketball. Let's turn it over to that for like 10 seconds, 30, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. The Knicks up 2-0. How many games in a row now, Chris?
I think 13 straight playoff wins.
13 straight playoff wins, which is insane.
Playoffs?
Yeah.
We're talking about playoffs?
Yep. The fact that the Dolphins haven't won 13 games in a season, for how many years, right? When was the last time we won 13 games? I mean, we did win them back in the early 80s, I think, right?
It's been a while.
Yep.
Yeah, I never thought the Knicks, out of all my teams that I root for, would be on the brink of a championship before the other two. And the Dolphins,
haven't won a playoff game in 26 years.
It's been a while, but, it's a Dolphins podcast, so let's get back on topic here.
Quarter of a century without a playoff. It was
1984. Win. The last time we won 13
games. And last time we won a playoff game was 2000.
And we actually won 14 that year.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe we have the longest drought in pro sports as far as playoff wins, which is kind of crazy to think about. But
yep.
Pathetic.
If the Knicks could turn it around, we can turn it around. So it all started with them getting the right GM, and he's done.
And the right man,
Leon Rose, has done a lot of good things.
Yeah, we got to get the right guy running the show. Period. Then that means head coach, and that means GM, and that means quarterback.
The right Malik might be our Jalen Brunson, man.
What's that, Mike?
Have we got him?
Well, listen, there's hope. Whereas the last couple of seasons, going into the seasons, I was in a happy camper. I don't think you were. I mean, going with the same three people at the head of the class there.
Well, my biggest beef was Greer, and it has been for years. I mean, this is nothing new.
And Tua wasn't far behind, Mike?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Okay.
I mean, look, I gave him the benefit of the doubt early on. He had a really good year in 23, and you got to give him credit for that. But he still didn't wow me. He wasn't the type of quarterback that can take a game over, and that's what I want to see from the quarterback.
I think, Mike, I'm going to go back and screenshot all your Facebook posts for the last 2.5 years. And I'm going to quote them on here in a future show to see if I agree with that last comment about you not being happy about Tua over the last, and it's been a good while. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, the bottom line is they're gone. The three-headed monster, I called it, and there's hope. And to answer your question, we don't know, if we have the right people in place. But what we do know is that there is hope in Dolphin land, and the changes were finally made. And, we'll see how everything unfolds. But all the moves they've made so far, so good in my eyes.
I don't know if you realize it or not, but they cleaned out the scouting department. I mean, they've still got some people left that were there, but they pretty much cleaned out the scouting department, especially the higher-ups.
And rightfully so,
yeah.
Right? What have they done other than screw up over and
exactly.
over again?
But my point is, they've turned over the roster. We have very few people that were here 2 years ago.
Yep.
They've turned over the coaching staff. We have very few coaches left over from McDaniel's regime. So they've pretty much done what we wanted them to do. They literally cleaned house. And, I'm happy about that. Now we have to see where it goes. But, I like Sullivan. I really like the way he talks. I like the way he I like his personality. I think he's a leader. And I said that before. So I'm very impressed with him. Now, how he does in the draft, of course, is going to be the ultimate deciding factor on whether or not I like the guy. But, you got to give him a couple of years and see what he puts together. And then you make a decision as to, his effectiveness. But the guy I have questions about is Hafley. But I like everything I've seen from him so far, but you really got to see him on the field and his decision-making and how he operates a game and all that before you can really form any real judgment.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned Hafley numerous times. What is exactly the issue that you have with him?
I don't have an issue with him. I just don't. I'm not going to believe in him until he gives me reason to believe in him. We've been down this road.
Yeah, and I kind of said the same thing last week that Mike's saying. He's done a great job at talking the talk. Now we got to see him walk the walk. I believe in everything that he's saying and everything that he's trying to implement right now, but we still got to see it be done. So
he seems to be holding players accountable.
Mm-hmm.
He's stopping practice to correct people. He's doing the things you want to see a coach do.
Yeah.
But is it going to be effective? That we'll see.
Right. I don't have a lot of doubts about, a lot of things that they've done, including, the head coach decision and the head coach himself. I think that, these guys are very, very motivated in the sense that, they're quality people and they want to get to a certain, they want to get to a place where this organization hasn't been in a long while. And it seems like they're extremely above and beyond motivated to get to that point. And, part of that equation are moves that have been made. And the moves that they've made, from one to the other, the smallest move to the biggest move, and the biggest move meaning Malik Willis, the quarterback decision. I've agreed with pretty much every single one of them. The Waddle trade, loved it, across the board. I loved everything. I love everything that they have done up to this point. So that's part of the equation right there. Now, obviously, you've got a roster that's a little shorthanded, and, we've got to understand that, so the head coach, as long as they're playing solid football, through this season, and we see guys getting better and the team as a whole getting better, then I think that's the accomplishment this year, and that's what we got to look for. Under McDaniel, guys, we were stagnant. You went into games and you were like, man, they look like shit. Even against lesser opponents at times, they were like, yeah, we won that game, but my God, did we struggle to win, right?
They couldn't beat good teams, period.
Well, they couldn't beat good teams, Mike, but even when they played some of the lesser teams and they came out with a field goal to win, you're looking at yourself and like, how can you be happy with this victory when we're beating a stinky Jet team 16-13? You know what I mean? Right. It was that type of feeling. You never saw the team coming out. To me, with that extra oomph that you need, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They seemed flat a lot of times, and sometimes in very big games. So, let's hope that we don't see any of that. We see, opening day, just go back to opening day last year. What a horrible disappointment that was, right?
That was.
Oh my God. It was
the Colts just wiped the floor with them.
Oh, it was just absolutely insane how bad we looked on opening day of the NFL. We looked worse than any other team. And I'll tell you what, the first couple of weeks, I don't know if there was a worse team in the NFL as far as how we were playing football. We just did not look good at all in any way, shape, or form. So
no, and then, a few weeks later, you had Hill go down, and that was pretty much all she wrote.
Yep. Real quick, and then we'll get off of this. When you look at going into this season, it's a roster that's not comparable to last year going into the season, right? To start the year, you had players on both sides of the football that, you felt were going to be productive. Before we got on, we were talking about the edge players with Chubb and Phillips, and that would be a definite strength for us. And they just struggled terribly. They weren't getting sacks. They weren't getting pressure on the quarterbacks. And, we were failing.
Yeah, Phillips was getting there, but couldn't finish.
Right. Well, with that being said, this year's roster going into the regular season is shorthanded in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But if they go out and they compete, that's all that you care about. They go out there and they look solid. They're like, man, they played a good football game. I mean, the other team may have been better, but man, we competed against them, and that's all you want to see week in and week out, at least at the beginning of the season.
Yep. Steady improvement week to week, and they're going to have ebbs and flows, of course, throughout a 17-game season.
Right.
But you want to feel like they're a competitive football team. They may not win, but they're competitive.
Yep, absolutely.
So we thought we'd talk about going through the roster and seeing who's going to be here in 2 years, 2028. Chris.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the quarterbacks.
The quarterbacks. Well, going back to the basketball analogy real quick, there's a lot of similarities between Malik and Jalen Brunson, and I think that's what we're hoping he's going to become. Jalen Brunson went to New York when there really wasn't much going over there, which is very similar. I mean, I think Malik's coming into a worse situation, but they entered free agency around the same time where they should be entering their peak. And Malik wants to come here because he believes in what we're building. And they're both smaller guys, which is kind of crazy. I believe in Malik, honestly. I think that, he can do some things, and I've seen just clips of it in this past week in the practices where, he's throwing across his body, off balance, but he's throwing a missile. And I say all that to say that I think Malik is going to be our future quarterback. Aside from him, Quinn Ewers has been getting some, the reporters have been saying that he's looked good so far, and I think Quinn can develop into a nice backup. So I would say those two guys, I can see them being on the roster in 2 years. Cam Miller, Mark Gronkowski, I don't know what's going to happen with those two, but our first string and second string, I do believe in these guys, and I think that they can hold down that position group going forward.
Yeah. Malik, I have a lot of faith in him going forward. I think that he is going to be the quarterback here. I think he'll be here 2 years from now. How many years did we sign him to?
2-year deal.
2-year deal.
Or 3-year deal.
I think it's a 3-year deal with a 2-year out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be here. I mean, we've said this before, right? I mean, with the drafting of Tua, they were hand in hand. McDaniel backed him up. They gave him the extension. So all that kind of stuff goes hand in hand. Greer drafted him. McDaniel, vouched for him, wanted him to get the extension. They gave him the extension, and they all failed together as one. So what happens here? What is the biggest and the biggest move that this new regime makes, right? They go out and they tie themselves to a quarterback that they had some knowledge of, right? So, he's going to make or break them. The GM, the head coach, they wanted him here, obviously. He wanted to be here. So I think it's a situation where they're like, man, you know what? If we screw this up, this is a major problem for us going forward, okay? The fact that they went out and did what they did, I think they have a lot of faith in him, and that's all we can go on. Now, what I've seen of him personally, I like a lot. I think that he did a great job in Green Bay. Sometimes he looked better than the starting quarterback when he came in. There's times where Love just didn't look as good as he did. So this is a guy, as Chris mentioned, that's coming in probably in his peak years. He's got experience now. He's very mobile back there, which is what, today's NFL quarterbacks need to be, because the defensive side is so athletic at every position. So I think that this guy is definitely going to be here, and I think he is going to be our quarterback for years to come. Now, behind him, Ewers, I have some question marks about, and the other two I just don't know. So I'm not too sure any of those three are on the roster a couple of years from now. We'll see. I mean, Ewers, may get an offer somewhere else at some point. To be a backup quarterback, they tend to bounce around. But, let's just hope that he doesn't get a lot of opportunities and Willis is on the field, week in and week out. That's what we want to see. So, I think Willis is our quarterback, at least going forward. And we'll be here, in 28 for sure.
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back for just a couple minutes, and we'll be right back.
Yep. Yeah, and the good thing is, too, that the way they structured this contract, if at the end of this season we don't feel like, or they don't feel like they've saw what they needed to see out of Malik, I think regardless, we're going to have around a top 6 pick next year. And in a quarterback or in a draft that's loaded with quarterbacks, we gave him a decent amount of money and really the only big contract we signed this offseason, but they did it smart to where, if it doesn't work out, we can draft a guy next year. We're still paying Malik next year around $20 million. You let the rookie sit and you let Malik, run that show for that next year and let that quarterback develop, which is definitely a thing that we saw Green Bay do. So,
I agree.
It's smart.
Yeah, it's definitely smart. And I mean, we are going to have a high draft pick. I mean, you look at our schedule. There's not a lot of wins on it, and they are going to have an opportunity to get a very solid quarterback. And I personally think that with that number 1 pick next year, I mean, unless there's somebody that's like over the top ridiculous where they draft at a different position, I think they are going to draft a quarterback in the first round without a doubt, But again, that if Malik goes out and he balls, they may say, hey, look, what?
We're looking at Jeremiah Smith, a kid who's from Miami who plays for Ohio State. That was the best wide receiver in college. He would have been the number 1 receiver taken this year had he came out, but he's still young enough to the point where, they're looking at him in this year's draft. So he's young. He's one of these generational Jamar Chase type guys they believe in. So, yeah, I mean, I just think, going into next, I keep saying this every week, but I think going into next year with the cap room and the amount of picks we'll have and, the high pick that we're going to have, we're set up to bounce back quick if they do the right things, if they make the right choices.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Quinn will be here, and I think Willis will be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ewers, the thing is, Mike, like we talked about, I mean, the question becomes if they do draft another quarterback, I mean, are you going to keep 3 on the roster, especially if he's the number 1 pick? And that's what my thought process was, in regard to him probably not being here.
Yeah, no, if they draft a quarterback, obviously that changes things.
Yep. And I think one way or another, even if it's not in the first round, I have a feeling you're going to see them draft, somebody, as Chris mentioned, quarterback, class next year is deep, and you could even see them grabbing one in the second round next year, to compete. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, a running back. You've got Achane, you've got Donovan Edwards, you've got Ollie Gordon, you've got Anthony Hankerson, Carlos Washington Jr., and Jalen Wright.
I'm going to just say Achane. I think these are huge years for Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon. I mean, regardless of where they were drafted last year and the year before that, this regime didn't take them. So if they can't complement Achane and give us kind of what we need, then I think both of these guys could be gone and we could be drafting a running back or maybe signing one in free agency next year, that a proven guy, a bigger guy that, can complement Achane well. But, I mean, I've liked what I saw out of Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon, but I don't think we've seen enough. So, if they're smart this year, they're not going to overload Achane with touches in a season where we're not, we're probably not going to win very much games, and we just signed Achane for the long haul. So, I mean, that's how I'm looking at it. I don't know how they're looking at it, but I think these are really make or break years for Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon. I mean, Donovan Edwards was a former Michigan running back who was one of the best running backs in college football, really, and his NFL career just hasn't really panned out. So maybe we'll see a little bit of him this year and see if there's anything there. But, I mean, I can confidently, obviously, say that Achane's going to be here in 2 years, barring anything crazy. But the rest of the guys, you know, they gotta earn their keep.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I like all three guys. I don't think that they're going to at any point address the running back position going forward. I mean, I think that these three guys are all solid football players, and if you have guys on your roster, I mean, this is going to be Jalen Wright's third season?
Yep.
And it's Ollie's second season. I mean, you know, you got young guys here that are still going to be on rookie contracts pretty much for another year or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if they go out and they're productive, and I think they will be, we saw Jalen Wright come in and do a pretty good job. You know, Ollie actually, his hands, you know, the few opportunities he had at catching the football, I was very surprised. He made some nice plays, you know, catching the ball out of the backfield, but he had so few opportunities to do it. You know,
yeah, they ran him right up the middle. It
just
seemed like when they ran him last year, it was the same play. Like when he came in, defenses knew, they're running a halfback dive right up the middle.
Yep, exactly. And he had no opportunity whatsoever.
And actually, I think with Ollie being the bigger back, he still has better hands than Wright. I mean, there's been reports this week that Wright was dropping a couple passes coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think this is Ollie Gordon's job to lose, really, as our backup. But I'd like to see all three of them in a committee, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think all three of these guys are going to be around for a good while. I think I like them all personally. I think that this is one of our better positions, you know, as far as depth is concerned. And I think that, you know, the youth there, you know, with Ollie going in only into his second season, he's got some years ahead of him, and Jalen's going into his third season. So, like I said, you got some young guys there, and I think they're all going to be around in a couple of years.
Well, that's just it. They're young guys, and you're not really sure what they're going to be.
Right. They're going to be backups, Mike. I mean, Achane's your number one.
No, obviously. Achane's not going to be unseated. That's obvious.
Right.
But who's going to be number two? Is it going to be Wright, or is it going to be Gordon? And I tend to lean towards Gordon.
Yeah.
Mike, I think they're going to be situational. Here's the thing, okay? I think that, you know, Wright's going to spell Achane, you know, as far as in their base offense, so to speak. And Ollie's going to be a short yardage guy and a guy that, you know, comes in from time to time in different situations. I think they're going to do a lot of what they did last year, only Ollie's going to have a little more opportunities and a little bit more different play calls for him, so to speak. You know,
I agree.
Calling his number in different ways. I think they're going to basically all be used the same way they were used, but you know, only with a little bit more diversity. Because McDaniel just, I mean, my God, regardless of what it was, it always seemed like they were running the same offensive plays out game in and game out. It didn't matter whether it was running or passing. So.
Yeah, they've got DJ Herman at fullback, and I don't think they keep him.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know.
That's
anything.
a former defensive tackle or linebacker that they're switching to fullback. With. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out, but we'll see.
Yep.
All right, at receiver, Tutu Atwell, Chris Bell, Kevin Coleman Jr., Caleb Douglas, A.J. Henning, Terrence Marshall Jr., Donovan McCulley, Jalen Reagor, Jalen Tolbert, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, and Theo Weiss Jr. Good number of receivers. How many of them do you think will be here in 2 years?
I think two. I'm looking at Chris Bell and I'm looking at Malik Washington. Caleb Douglas, our highest picked receiver this year. I don't know, man. I don't see it. I'm not hearing great things coming out of camp. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I hope he ends up developing into like a Christian Watson type receiver who just got a contract extension, I think yesterday or the day before with Green Bay. I see how Sully's kind of taking this with that same approach to where, we don't have any first round picks or top paid receivers, but looks like we have a bunch of solid receivers. I just, it's crazy that we took Caleb Douglas as high as we did. And, like I said, in 2 years, he might not even be on the team. I mean,
he fits their mold, though. He's 6'4", 210.
He does. I just think, when Chris Bell is back fully healthy, I think he's going to be the best receiver on this team.
I think most people would say that.
Yeah, off the tape that I've seen and just the type of guy he is. I mean,
he may not be the most explosive, but he'll probably be the best receiver.
He's going to make plays. And Malik Washington, whether he's our slot receiver or just our returner, I think he adds something that we should keep on to. We didn't talk about it at the beginning of the show, but we just signed Jalen Reagor, for former first-round pick. Believe it or not, I think he actually got taken ahead of Justin Jefferson in that 2020 draft. So that's kind of crazy to look back on that. But I don't think, I think he's going to be fighting to make the team. I don't know.
Yeah, this will be his 7th season.
Yeah, he was drafted in the first round by the Eagles. And, he'll add a little bit of depth. I mean, listen, you left a few guys out that this is interesting. We know what Tutu Atwell is, right? I have a feeling, with a different quarterback in Malik Willis, I have a feeling that Taj Washington is actually, and this is just a prediction, but I have a feeling that Taj Washington's going to wind up being used a little bit more than Tutu is. I think they're similar, right, in what they do.
The problem is Taj Washington's durability. I mean, he already got banged up and had to miss a few practices this week or last week. So, I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he can make an impact. But
I think if he makes the team, it's going to be on the practice squad.
Yeah, probably. I think I feel the same.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Tutu, 6'5", 5'9", 165 pounds. I mean, my goodness, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Taj is a little bit bigger, not much, 10 pounds, 10 pounds, couple inches, taller, 10 pounds heavier. I don't know. I just, I liked what I saw out of Taj. I think
I got him 30 pounds heavier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got Washington at 195, and I've got Atwell at 165.
Yeah, and what about Kevin Coleman Jr.?
That's the other guy. That's the other guy that I mentioned, that I wanted to mention. Yeah, I think Kevin Coleman's going to be a pleasant surprise, too.
He's 180.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5'11", 180.
Yep.
Yeah. I got, and it doesn't matter. I got Taj, Mike, at 175. So I don't know. I mean, I can't see.
Yeah, he's a small guy, too.
He's a small. I don't see him being 195 pounds. That must be a typo.
Maybe you're looking at Malik Washington.
I was looking at Malik Washington. You're right. It's 174.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Yeah, that sounds more like it.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, with all that being said, look, you throw all these guys. Theo Weiss is another one that's bounced around. Terrence Marshall Jr. I mean, you got a lot of guys here, and you throw them all up against the wall, and man, you may wind up with a nice receiving group out of these guys when it's all said and done at the end of the year. You may have some pleasant surprises here. And then
who's going to be here in 28, Lou?
I personally, I think that, Chris Bell will definitely be here as long as he can stay healthy, and Malik, like Chris said. Yeah. But I think that, you're going to wind up having a guy like Coleman possibly being around as well. And possibly Caleb Douglas. I know Chris is down on him, but
the guy's on the rookie deal.
It's a high draft pick. Yeah. I mean, so we'll see.
Those are who's been getting some good reviews too is Jalen Tolbert. They said that him and Malik have kind of developed a nice chemistry between them two so far. And I don't know if he'll be here 2 years down the road, but I think he's a guy that might surprise us this year.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be a starter more than likely. So
yeah, he's penciled in as that right now. So we'll see once the season starts. We just have so many wild cards at this position. I think Malik Washington at the moment is probably the most solid. But
agreed.
We'll see.
Tight end, we got Dulcich, we got Kaczmarek, we got Ben Sims, and Seydou Traore. And Cole Turner.
Okay. I think this is we signed Dulcich to a 1-year contract, correct?
I believe so.
So yeah, I mean this is going to be a make or break year for him, and I don't think that if he doesn't end up on our roster after this year, it's going to be because of his play. I think it's just going to be because of his durability. Because I mean that's kind of been his thing so far throughout his career. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy, but. I mean, we saw last year from the small glimpses, especially in that Tampa Bay game last year. I mean, he's got good hands, and not only does he have good hands, once he has the ball in his hand, this dude can fly for a tight end. You know, he plays physical, not scared of contact like Gesicki and those type of guys. And then Will Kaczmarek, actually, you know, I've been watching videos of him, and, you know, if he's as good of a blocker as they say he is, and he's got a little bit better receiving skills than a lot of people think. You know, I mean, when we took him, I was kind of not down on the pick, just down where we took him, you know. But I think he's a guy who, you know, if he can stay healthy as well, you know, he's a guy who can be our future tight end one, you know. So,
yeah, Dulcich. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I mean, Dulcich, I feel like this is going to be a make or break year. Will Kaczmarek's on a rookie deal, so I think more than likely he'll be here in 2 years, whether it's as a backup or as our starter. The other guys.
They signed him to one year contract.
Yeah.
And then he's got 4 void years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Kaczmarek, I mean, we saw how long Smythe stood around, right? I mean, God, he was on the roster for, 4 or 5 seasons?
Yeah.
I mean, he was around quite a while, you know, being, you know, sort of a blocking tight end. And, you know, I see Kaczmarek as, you know, being a piece to the puzzle, you know, being in. And I think he'll be here in a couple of years. You know, Dulcich is interesting. I think that, you know, like Chris said, depending on what he does this year, you know, is going to be make or break if they re-sign him. I mean, if he has too good a year, you know, you may see other teams try to pry him away, and there's a possibility he does get pried away. So I'm not really sold on, you know, him being here, you know, 2 years down the road, unless, you know, somehow, some kind of way, him and Malik Willis just combined just wind up being, you know, a great duo there, you know, in our offense. You know, so this tight end position, I think regardless, you know, they have to go out and they have to get a guy that's just, you know, over the top stud. I mean, Dulcich is going into his 5th season too. Keep that in mind. You know, he's 26 going on 27. And, you know, the tight end position, you know, maybe up till, you know, the age of 30, he can still be productive. But he's got to stay healthy, as Chris mentioned as well. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, I love the player. You know, we just gotta see him as a starter and as a full-time player. You know what he brings to the table, and you know he's a big question mark. So we'll see.
You know who's out there that's actually interesting that I can see them maybe bringing in, and it's a guy that I'd take a shot on. Jonnu Smith still does not have a contract yet, which means his market is probably not great. And if we can get him in for, you know, $2-3 million, I think that's a guy that's willing, or we should look at, you know. And then you have 3 solid tight ends, and if Dulcich gets hurt, you can see Jonnu Smith come in and play that same type of role.
If he doesn't even beat him out, you know, for the starting position.
And he was a guy who wanted to be here, you know. I mean, he was pissed when we traded him to Pittsburgh, you know. I mean, but he wanted his money. He had a great Pro Bowl season the year before that, you know, and, you know, we just didn't feel like he was worth the money. But, you know, he's gotten a lot of contracts throughout his career so far. So if nobody's willing to sign him and he's willing to take something around the vet minimum, I'd definitely bring him in, you know, to help give Malik another weapon, you know.
Mm-hmm. I like Dulcich. I think his hands need to be more consistent.
Yeah.
And we'll see what Kaczmarek is, you know. I mean, obviously the reviews are the guy can block.
Yeah.
So they need that. So you would think he would be here in a couple of years. Evidently his hands are underrated because he's catching pretty well in camp. Ben Sims has had, I guess, a 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, some of these guys are making plays. Traore, I don't hear much about. Have you?
No. I mean, that's a guy who's most likely going to be on a practice squad. And
Probably.
I said this, too. When we drafted him, it almost felt like, they were doing it, not for show, but, he was there in Pittsburgh. He's part of that international program. It was kind of, a guy that probably would have went undrafted, and we could have just got him as an undrafted rookie. But,
maybe.
But he doesn't count against a spot on our roster. So,
right.
I think maybe we'll see him more so next year after a year of just learning the offense and just developing all his skills, because there is some talent there, but we'll see if it translates.
Yep.
Yeah. Cole Turner, I don't hear much about.
No, I don't even know who that is. I'll be honest with you.
Well, he's a third-year player, so he's got some experience.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as any of these guys being here 2 years down the road, I think you got to go with the guy they drafted, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Generic, I think so, yeah.
So that would be my choice there. I'd like to see Dulcich there, but like I said, he's got to improve his hands a little bit. He's dropping a lot of passes in camp, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, that can change quick.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, this is Mike again, breaking in for a second just to ask a favor of you. We would like to request that you go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review and rate the show. Let us know how we're doing. We'd very much appreciate it. Thank you, and fins up. All right, guys, we're going to break for a few moments, and we'll be right back. At center, Aaron Brewer, Andrew Meyer, and Jim Boniface.
Man, Brewer, I mean, he's going to be 29 in October.
Yeah.
7th season. This is going to be his 8th season coming up. I mean, that's tough. I don't know. He's not going to be on the contract after this season? This is his last year on the contract, correct? If I'm not mistaken. So, they got to make a decision on him. If he's productive again this year, maybe you sign him and he plays until, his early 30s. He's a very, very solid football player. But, at some point they got to start thinking about, who's going to be replacing him. I don't know if any of these three guys are going to be here 2 years from now. Andrew Meyer's going into his 3rd year. I mean,
he'd be 28.
Yeah. Who? Andrew
Meyer? He would be 28 in 2 years.
Yeah. It's Boniface. I don't know much about him. I mean, he was a free agent signing, correct? A free agent.
He's a rookie.
Rookie, yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about him. But, at some point, I think they're going to have to address that center position. It'd be great to sit here and tell you 2 years from now Brewer's still going to be at the level he's playing at now. But, that's a big question mark. So I don't know if any of these three will be here 2 years from now.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but they definitely have a decision to make. I mean, he's a guy who wants a new contract. He's made that vocal, but he's also, one of our leaders in the locker room. So, I mean, the only thing that sucks about, him getting older is the fact that, he is a smaller center. He is a guy who relies on his athleticism, and that's kind of like his strong suit. He's not one of these big centers that is just going to clog up the middle. So, they definitely have a decision to make. I can see them maybe giving him like a 2-year deal or 2-year extension. I don't see them signing him to like a 4 or 5 year, anything crazy like that. He may just, say, hey, I'm not signing no extension. I'm going to take a gamble on myself. And if he balls out this year, somebody else will give him a contract. I mean, I can see him, potentially linking back up with Mike McDaniel and the Chargers, because their center position's a little shaky. So who knows? That may end up even being a trade destination from him. If it comes up to the trade deadline and we still don't have a contract extension for him, it's like you might as well get something rather than just letting him walk and not getting nothing. I mean, but he's a guy that Hafley and Sully both have spoke high of, and, they seem to like him. So, You know, it's like Lou said, you know, hopefully he can continue his production. But like I said, being a smaller center and, you know, relying on his athleticism, you know, once you get older, you lose that half a step on the competition. You know, it's a young man's game. So we'll see. And as far as the other guys, I don't know. You know, I mean, I think Andrew Meyer missed majority of the season last year, but, you know.
Well, apparently the old staff liked Meyer.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how the new staff feels about him, but obviously they kept him on the roster.
Yeah, and he's versatile too. He can play guard, so you know it's not bad to have guys like that around. But as far as in 2 years, I think Brewer's
But I
the
agree.
only one.
Collectively, the three of them, I don't know that you can predict any of them will be back in 2 years. Maybe Brewer, obviously, but that's not a certainty at this point in time because of the contract situation.
Yeah.
Guard, DJ Campbell, Josh Preeb, I guess you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmer Salyer, Jonas Avayanaya, and Keon Smith.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Salyer just got carted off the field a couple days ago, but apparently it's not anything super serious. So we'll see how that goes. They got Caden Proctor penciled in as a guard, but you know, I spoke about that last week. I see him as our left tackle as long as, you know, our right tackle as long as Patrick Paul continues to, you know, become what he's supposed to be.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, but I like they have him penciled in as a guard, but I see him more as a tackle, so that's why I don't know if I want to keep him in this group. But
I kind of see it the same way.
Yeah, Jonas Avayanaya, I think this is a make or break year, regardless whether they traded up for him in the second round. Again, this is not that regime. If he doesn't show significant improvement, I can see him being gone after this year, just becoming a backup. So in 2 years, I would say Jonah's probably going to be here, whether it's as a starter or whether it's as a backup. DJ Campbell has gotten, you know, some pretty good reviews so far. I mean, he was a solid 3-year starter at Texas in the SEC, so I think he's a guy that might surprise some people. Aside from that, Keon Smith is, you know, they have him as the backup left guard right now, but I kind of see him more as a tackle, and he's just another guy who hasn't been able to stay healthy. So as far as the exercise and what we're talking about being here in 2 years, I think, you know, it's probably just Jonah, and I can see maybe DJ Campbell. But aside from that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. You, Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking Proctor will definitely be here past him. You know, like Chris said, I think Jonah will be here, but, you know, it may not be as a starter. But past those two guys, I mean, I honestly don't see it. I don't see an awful lot. So, yeah, I mean, you know, right now I think Proctor and, you know, Jonah will be the only two on the roster. And, you know, Proctor, I think, will be the only guy starting across that offensive line. You know, this offensive line is going to need some. You know, we'll get to the tackles in a second, but yeah, they're going to need some more bodies in there. You know, you can't do it all in 1 year. Let's just hope that you know, we have some good draft picks going forward, and you know, we fill some holes there. You know, that need to be addressed. But I think Proctor is going to be a long-time offensive lineman for us one way or another.
Yep. All right. Kevin Klein at tackle. Marquise Cox. Charlie Heck. Austin Jackson. Patrick Paul. Caden Proctor. And Carter Warren.
I'm going to make this short and sweet. Proctor and Paul.
Agreed. Same thing. Yeah, I mean, you know, listen, sometimes you get a guy, you know, among this group, and none of us know enough about any of the backups here. But there's times where, you know, a guy will come out of nowhere and surprise the hell out of you and become a very solid football player. But, you know, if I had to sit here and tell you, you know, which one of any of these guys would be that guy, I couldn't do it. But I know for certain that Patrick Paul, you know, is going to need an extension. He's rock solid at that left tackle position, and he's a guy that you better keep around, you know, going forward, because he is that good. You know, past that, I don't see anybody, you know, other than Proctor, obviously, our draft.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about, some of these guys. I mean, Charlie Heck is 29. You can play offensive line a little longer than some other positions.
Yeah.
But, who knows? This is his 7th season.
Mm-hmm. You know what, though? I'm going to circle back.
Yeah.
If Austin Jackson is able to stay healthy this season and he's willing to take an extension as, a backup or swing tackle and he doesn't have a market, I would be open to signing him just because he can play guard too, add to a minimum deal for like a couple years and have him just as your backup swing tackle. If he's able to stay healthy this year and show that, because what's crazy about him is he's still only 26 years old.
Yep.
Yeah,
he's still young.
If he's able to stay healthy and show this regime that he still wants to be here and he still wants to be in the NFL. Period. I can see him on the roster a couple years down the line, but that's really just going to come down to his durability.
Yeah,
he's taken a pay cut 2 years in a row, and to stay with the team.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously he wants to be here. So I just hope because he seems like a good dude. Whenever you hear him talk in his interviews, he's not a real rah-rah guy. He's a guy who comes in and tries to put in the work to be better. It's just some guys with their bodies.
Somebody stepped on his foot. There's not much you can do about that. It screwed up his foot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't blame him for that. That's just something that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you got to take things like that into consideration, too.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a guy that's pulling muscles and staying out with, torn hamstrings and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's... Listen, my problem with Austin Jackson is even when he's on the field, there's times where, he struggles. And, I think he's an average offensive lineman.
Yes.
I think you have to upgrade one way or another. And, maybe he's here as a backup swing tackle guard, as you mentioned, Chris. But, I would love to see them upgrade that position.
Well, we did. We took him 11th overall.
All right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back for just a couple minutes, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
That's going to be our future right tackle.
You keep saying that, but, I don't know. Well, we'll see. It depends on what they do in future drafts. I think if they can get, a beast of a tackle, that Proctor may just very well be fine as big as he is at that guard position. As Mike mentioned last week, he's in a box. You don't have to worry about speed being a factor, bouncing around him on the outside. And these edge guys are fast. I mean, they are quick. So, you may have found, your interior guy right there that play right next to Patrick Paul for the next 5 years. And, you just leave it at that and move on from there. So we'll see, big question marks.
The thing you have to acknowledge is this is a massive offensive line with the exception of Brewer.
Yeah.
And how's Malik going to function behind it, That's something we have to see because he's only 6'1", and these guys are a lot bigger than that. So.
Yeah. Is he going to be able to throw over Proctor?
He's going to throw a quick
Not going to see a lot of slants.
Throw a quick slant and hit Proctor right in the back of his helmet.
In the back of his ass. Forget about his helmet. That's how big he is. So anyway,
Yep. So he's going to have to work at finding throwing lanes and escaping the pocket with his legs, which obviously he can do.
Yeah.
But doing it and the defense knowing you're going to do it, sometimes they prepare for it and you really can't. So we'll see. But that'll be it for today's show. I think we'll carry the defense next week. Chris, you wanted to talk
a couple big trades in the NFL.
The trades, yes.
One of them being in our division, so we'll start off with that. The New England Patriots acquired wide receiver A.J. Brown from Philadelphia in exchange for a 2028 first, a 2027 fifth. And our guy Julian Hill is on injured reserve. So, I mean, the second part doesn't really matter, but they put that in there, and I thought it'd be relevant since, he was a guy who got a pretty nice contract from England who kind of surprised all of us, but that sucks, man. He's going to be out for the season, but
so you said 2028, Chris?
Yeah.
So not next year's draft, the 2028 draft.
The following year, which was interesting. But
the worth is kind of you take away a round. So, like if it's a 3rd round pick you're getting 2 years from now, it would really be of the value of a 5th round pick.
I think they overpaid for him, to be honest with you. I mean, I think, giving up a 1st round pick for him at this point in his career,
he's a headache.
He's a headache, and on top of that, Mike, his production has been average. It hasn't been over the top great. It's been declining, and this is his 3rd team over his career. I think he'll be a good player for them, but a 1st round pick, I think he could have been had, for maybe a 2nd or a 3rd. I would not have given up a 1st round for him. Too much compensation, I think, for a guy like that. So anyway.
Yeah, and his production the last couple of years, I think, has a little to do with Jalen Hurts and the fact that they keep switching offensive coordinators. So, I think that was his biggest gripe with the reason why he's no longer there. He just didn't believe in the offense, and he stopped believing in his quarterback. But like you guys said, he's a headache, and when you put that in with all the other stuff that Vrabel's involved with right now, that's a team and that's a locker room that's going to be very, and I just, with Drake May playing as good as he did last year, getting him a target's important, but when you're bringing in one of these guys, these prima donna wide receivers, it's just, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Last year they brought in Diggs and it worked. Diggs was pretty productive. He didn't really cause too much distractions aside from his marriage and whatever he had going on with the female rapper that he had a baby with and all the other women that he had babies with last year.
If you're going to make a trade like that, Chris, I think it has to be somebody who's not a drama queen.
Yeah, especially when you're giving up a 1st round pick. I don't care if it's 2 years down the road. That's still an asset. And, this team, like I said, depending on what happens with this whole Vrabel situation, wasn't like a super talented team. So in 2028, who knows because I think we can all agree that they benefited from how easy their schedule was last year.
Of course.
If they have a setback year and they end up with, a top 10 to 12 round pick, that's going to be a nice pick for Philly to have. So, Philly always does this. They do great business. Their GM is the man. I like what he's doing. But, to take a step up, I think a guy who's been even better is the Rams GM. And we'll talk about that trade real quick. Myles Garrett to the Los Angeles Rams for Jared Verse, a 2027 1st round pick, a 2028 2nd round pick, and a 2029 3rd round pick. And the Rams team, who also acquired the cornerback from the Chiefs, Trent McDuffie, the Rams have to be the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year.
They're trying.
They're going all in with this F them picks thing. Greer tried to do the same thing, but, the problem was he wasn't trading for Myles Garrett's and he wasn't trading for Trent McDuffie's. He was trading for guys like Bradley Chubb and giving 1st round picks up, and but that trade was interesting because Myles Garrett, it seemed like he's been trying to get out of the Browns organization for a couple years. He said it wasn't about the money, he wasn't re-signing, and then signed for a buku amount of bucks. And we're all like, okay, you just said you didn't want to be there, and then you signed an extension with them. But it's interesting because I think this is kind of like a win-win for both teams because, the Browns, I think they did very well in the draft last year. They're still trying to figure out who their quarterback's going to be, but they drafted the defensive rookie of the year last year and the linebacker that they took. And, they're a nice young team. And to get back Jared Verse, obviously he's no Myles Garrett, but he's a former 1st round pick and he's been very productive with the Rams. So to get that, a 1st, a 2nd, and the 3rd in 2029, which I don't really want to count because that's years down the road. They got back a nice haul. So
yeah, no doubt.
He did the right thing for the player, and who's Myles Garrett? He set the single season record for sacks last year, so he wants to win, man. He's a hell of a player, and he's just been on a shitty team his whole career. So I like that they did right by him, but they also got back a nice haul for him too. So, like I said, win-win for both.
Well, I hope A.J. Brown destroys the Patriots. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, we're all hoping for that too, for sure.
I mean, again, the way I look at it is this. I mean, the Rams are trying to, win a championship, and they were right there and could have, and that's what they're basically buying here. But when you look at Verse, like you said, Defensive Rookie of the Year, last year he had 7.5 sacks, okay? So they get him, Cleveland, and then they get a first rounder and a second rounder for a 30-year-old defensive lineman. Now, we've seen in Chubb and other guys that at this point, as you get older, you're just not as productive. So this is probably a 1 year at tops, 2-year deal, to have him there, and you got to pray that he's as productive as he has been. I mean, 30 years old. I mean, you're getting up there in age. You do slow down a bit. To get a first rounder and a guy like Verse, who's only going into his third season and is a very good defensive player. Woof. I mean, you gave up a lot for him, a lot for Garrett. So, it's make or break championship for them. So we'll see. We'll see how that all pans out.
All right, guys.
All right.
Appreciate you joining me this morning. And
you got it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week. And until then, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up, Dolphins.
And that's the end of another show. I want to thank the Believe Network for allowing us to join them this year, and the Dolphins Talk Network, who we've been a part of for many years. I want to thank both of these outfits. They're exceptional people, and we're proud and honored just to be a part of it. Until next time, take care.